morning to you. We are joining you here on this Saturday for special coverage paying tribute to a young officer who laid his life on the line to serve his community and to keep people safe.
Elwood police officer Noah Shahnavaz was just 24 years old when he died in the line of duty just last weekend. So today we will guide you through the journey to honor his life and his sacrifice as law enforcement officers from around our region, family, and other loved ones gather to mourn the loss of Officer Noah.
Sadly, we have joined you this way too often in this capacity over the last 10 years, as 9 sworn officers of the law have been laid to rest in our viewing area as a result of gun violence since 2012. We're showing you inside ITOWN Church in Fishers right now, where, as you can see, the flag-draped casket of Officer Shahnavaz is there in the center as officers from around the region walk by his casket paying tribute.
Yeah, what's happening here is first the officers from the Elwood Police Department are going by the casket, by the family, paying their respects, and following the Elwood police officers are the officers who were involved in the incident when Officer Shahnavaz lost his life. After that, all of the officers who are there to pay their respects to the family will go by this casket, will go by the family, showing them that they are here to support them today in this day that's going to be so tough for so many.
Our colleagues are stationed throughout the area in Fishers, inside and outside the church, along the procession route, outside the Elwood Police Department, and our Caitlin Kendall is outside of the ITOWN Church there, and she's letting us know that there's a long line of officers who are waiting to get inside to pay their respects, to file by the casket there.
The funeral began here at 11 a.m. and law enforcement officers are there right now. You're seeing them filing by the casket, and the services begin right after all of those officers go by the casket. Following that, the procession to Elwood will begin. They will go from Fishers all the way up to the Elwood Police Department, where they will do a final 1042 call at the Elwood Police Department. They're asking the community to come out to show their support along this procession route. It will then travel back. It will go through Carmel, several different cities, towns, communities. They're asking people to line the route, show their respects, and then eventually it will go down to Crown Hill Cemetery, where Officer Noah Shahnavaz will be buried there today. So we will be with you along the entire route today in the journey.
And we're expecting hundreds of officers to file past the casket there. And when the last officer walks by, the officer in charge will relieve the guards, and then the religious portion of the funeral service will begin. And we understand the pastor, who is a friend of the family, will perform this service, and he is visiting our area from out of town today.
Yes, and we do know that Officer Shahnavaz's mom will also speak. We have a copy of the program from our Caitlin Kendall, and she said part of what was read in that program was he was a good, honorable, kind man. He senselessly was taken from the world far too soon. She said we should all seek to honor Noah's life and sacrifice by choosing to move forward, do hard things, and always strive to make the world a better place.
On the program there.
Yes.
Such a sad event that we're covering today, and a great man who had an amazing smile, as we've learned in our coverage of his life this week, and we are celebrating his life today. Our Caitlin Kendall is outside of the ITOWN Church in Fishers, and Caitlin, you've got a long line of law enforcement officers behind you. Good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. I can tell you I've been out here since about 7:30 this morning. The magnitude of the officers who have come by, it's pretty compelling. I can tell you I've seen probably more than 1,000 officers all lining up to head inside. I want to step out of frame so that you can take a look at that. I've seen officers from all over the state, even a few out of state. We've seen officers from New York and Texas, even Louisville, Kentucky, all coming out here to pay their respects to Officer Noah Shahnavaz. This line has been stretched out for hours, the sun beating down on these officers. They're in their entire gear, uniform, suited up, ready to pay their respects to Officer Shahnavaz. I will take a moment to zoom in here to each of the officers. They all have a carnation that is hung upside down behind their badge. The significance behind that carnation, it's a white carnation, meaning good service and a good life ahead. On each of those carnations, there is a red dot in the middle, That signifies the bloodshed. Of course, Officer Noah Shahnavaz killed in the line of duty. Every single one of these officers with those carnations will walk by the casket at the end of today and lay their final flower on the top of Noah's casket. You can see the line stretching far to the other building. So many officers just out here doing what they can. You know, I've spoken to many of these officers who said it's always sad when you see an officer killed in the line of duty, but it kind of makes you realize the magnitude of the job, how hard the job can be, what that sacrifice is like every single day when they put that uniform on. They risk a chance that their life's going to be taken, but it's something every single officer I spoke with today said they are honored and they are proud to do. And I also spoke with many of Noah's fellow colleagues, some of his friends, who just talked about his laugh and his smile, his zeal for life that he brought to the community. I can tell you his mom, in the program that you guys mentioned, spoke about his character, his noble honor, proud to be not only a police officer, but also a 5-year Army sergeant veteran in the Army. Of course, very, very sad day today. I can tell you officers are lining up with their spouses, fellow brothers and sisters in arms, because they truly know what this job entails and what it can mean for all of the officers. I want to step back in frame here to tell you guys about many of the things that we are expected to see today. After the officers file in, they'll all walk by the casket, and that's when we will start the funeral process. Reporting for you live outside of ITOWN, I'm Caitlin Kendall.
Caitlin, before I let you go, I want you to talk a little bit about, you've been in Elwood for much of this week, covering this tragedy and learning more about the man who Noah Shahnavaz was. And one detail that stuck out to me yesterday when you were covering the visitation were the photos that you saw of his life. Tell us a little bit about that again, and the one thing that you noticed that was the thing in common in all of these pictures.
Yeah, Mark, I stepped inside yesterday to pay my respects. I felt it was the right thing to do. And when you stepped inside of that church, there was a video slideshow of his life. Things like his mom holding him as soon as he was a newborn baby boy, him as a little kid eating his first birthday cake. There was pictures of him as a Boy Scout, pictures of him in high school. He was in the Fishers High School band, graduating in 2016. And then there was pictures of him as an Army sergeant. And every single one of those pictures, he had this smile, a smile that I truly will never forget. Some of the videos were playing, you heard his laugh. It's something that every single person I've talked to, I've witnessed myself in those pictures. It's something that'll truly be remembered. It's a smile that is sure to leave an impact on people's lives. But the significant thing behind those photos that compelled me was that it showed who he was as a person, right? Oftentimes when we see police officers and people in the military, we just see them as that. But these people are brothers, they're sisters, sons, uncles, all of those things that make them who they are today. And that smile, Mark, it was just something compelling.
It's amazing, and everybody that we've talked to in the community of Elwood there had similar things to say about him in their different interactions with him, that he was just so kind, approachable, and easy to talk to. Thank you so much, Caitlin. We'll be checking in with you just a little bit later.
And his parents were also writing in the program that he was a beautiful man, a beautiful son, a beautiful grandson. He knew what it was like to struggle, and he knew what it was like to succeed. He served our country for 5 years in the U.S. Army. He then, after discharge from the Army, he then went to the Elwood Police Department just a year ago in August of 2021.
This was a calling for him.
Serve his community, serve his country.
And he was very active in his high school as well. A 2016 graduate of Fishers High School. He was a member of the high school's drum line for not just 1 year or 2 years, but all 4 years of his high school career.
And he also was a member of the Tigers wrestling team. Officer Shahnavaz was from Fishers. He was also a member of ITOWN Church. The Hamilton Southeastern School District remembers him as friendly, easygoing. He had a caring personality. He also enjoyed hiking, boating, and gaming. He leaves behind his mom, his dad, his 2 siblings. And his mother is an elementary school for the district there. So this is a kid who grew up in Fishers, who went on to serve his country and came back home to serve his community and lost his life far too soon.
He had a good upbringing. It sounds like he had a very solid family who is overwhelmed, they say, by the support they've been receiving from the community, according to the Fraternal Order of Police. And these services, especially with a fallen officer, can be very emotionally taxing on a family. Even though they're surrounded by support and love, it is still a long day and a very emotional and sad day for them as they go from the start of this of these traditions of laying an officer to rest to the very end at the cemetery.
Yeah, we know the FOP has been working hand in hand with the family to just make sure the day goes the way that they would like it to, while also honoring him and his service to our country and to our community. They've been working with the family. You mentioned earlier a pastor from out of town is coming in, family pastor, and then also the pastor at ITOWN Church, where Officer Shahnavaz was a member. They will be there to honor this family and to make sure that they know that we appreciate his service
and support him and the family still. You know, we mentioned that Noah Shahnavaz was a graduate of Fishers High School, and how involved in that community he was too. In fact, we even heard from his principal, who said that the principal, Jason Urban there, his dream was to serve others, and he says we are proud of what he accomplished in such a short time. And it is important to note that his life was so short.
Yeah.
Just 24, had so much life ahead of him.
He called him a promising young man, full of talent and full of potential. That's according to the Fishers High School principal. The city of Elwood is making sure the family of Officer Shahnavaz knows they stand with them.
Yeah, WRTV's Adam Shum shows us the messages the community is writing to his family.
In the small town of Elwood,
everybody knows everybody and supports everyone.
the thin blue line and banners are a sign of support.
In this small town, when something like this happens, we all come together.
To honor Officer Noah Shahnavaz, who was killed on Sunday in the line of duty.
Well, this officer's trying to do his job. He's ambushed and his life is taken.
The sign on the way into Elwood reads, "The Heart of Hoosierly."
When we heard the news about Officer Noah, the whole community's heart just broke.
In the midst of tragedy, this community
So sorry to the kids' parents,
is putting pen to paper
the police officer in our community for the loss of this young man.
and showing their hearts.
This is a great opportunity for the residents that can attend.
And making sure that Officer Shahnavaz's family knows how much they appreciate his service.
So when I heard this happened, I talked to my fiance, and we kind of agreed that we had to say something because we're part of this town and it affects everybody.
Rick Manis' fiance knows how tragedy can impact a family.
Her son was very small at the time, and so growing up without a dad is something he had to kind of learn to deal with.
So when Rick and his fiance told her son the news, he had one message.
His exact words were, he thought about it for a second and he said, "God must have needed a new angel."
And that's exactly what Rick wrote inside of this register book.
If that boy could go through with what he did and deal with it and learn to live with what happened, then I hope that this family could too. And I think they can.
It's a powerful message.
It was important for us to put that in the book, that exact quote.
So this town, this community can honor an officer's life that was just getting started.
We are small town USA and we stick together.
Adam Shooms,
Just be nicer.
WRTV.
Just be nicer there. And I think you've seen this week so many people coming out, as Adam showed us, writing messages, strangers who didn't even know Officer Noah, expressing their appreciation and their admiration for him and the ultimate sacrifice he gave to his community and his country.
Earlier this week, we went to a vigil in Elwood, and there was a large crowd there. And because of that, they know that there's going to be a large crowd there at the funeral today. They said ITOWN Church seats about 1,200 to 1,300 people. And then we have all the officers coming from, all over the state and country. And they just want to show that family that we see them, we hear them.
We hear you. And we support you.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us here on WRTV, we want to let you know that we are covering the funeral, this journey that we're taking you from start to finish to honor a fallen officer who served the Elwood Police Department. This is a live view that you're seeing in Fishers at the ITOWN Church, where officers from around our viewing area and from around the state have made the journey and the pilgrimage here to pay honor to one of their brothers who was killed in the line of duty last weekend. You see the flag-draped casket of Elwood police officer Noah Shahnavaz there, along with flowers and pictures on the side. Officers are lined up outside to walk by the casket, as is customary in these types of memorial services.
Yeah, the funeral started at 11 a.m. and the Elwood Police Department was first to walk by the casket, followed by Fishers Police Department, Hamilton, Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, and they're all filing by the casket, filing by the family. Now, after this is done, that is when the religious portion of the funeral will begin. And this is a live look at ITOWN Church. This is where Officer Shahnavaz was a member. He was a member of this community. He grew up in Fishers. He was a Fishers High School graduate. He served our country in the U.S. Army for 5 years, and he just became an Elwood police officer in 2021. We're learning more about him from a program that our Caitlin Kendall got from his family. And in that program, they say his work ethic was unmatched. He had a lifelong goal of becoming a police officer, and he finally achieved that dream in the summer of 2021.
He had so much more to live for as well, too. As officers continue filing by, we want to listen in. You know, part of the service involves the music, the chance to sit and really reflect. And so let's listen in. live view of the ITOWN Church in Fishers, where the funeral service for Elwood Police Officer Noah Shahnavaz will happen. Right now, the police officers from our area are filing by, and if you look on either side of the casket there, you'll see the two guard officers standing by. And these two officers will be in place by the casket from start to finish. It's customary in these types of services, and they do adjust their positions, but we watch them move from one position to the next in the last few minutes there.
And once that last officer files by, pays their respects to the family, passes by the casket, The last officer will file by, then the officer in charge will relieve those guards and the religious portion of the funeral will begin. We will have that for you completely live, uninterrupted, right here on WRTV when that happens. Again, you're looking live here at ITOWN Church in Fishers for Officer Noah Shahnavaz's funeral. Officer Shahnavaz was a member at ITOWN Church, Fishers High School graduate.
So really a community there of loved ones, brothers in law enforcement and his church congregation. This, after following the funeral service at the church, there will be a procession from Fishers to Elwood, where they'll do the final call, and then back down from Elwood to Crown Hill Cemetery. That means the funeral procession could disrupt traffic today. If you are in these areas, you might want to head to our website at WRTV.com, where we do have a copy of the procession route, just so that you can know when to avoid these areas, just in case that is part of your day and you're in these areas. We are expecting hundreds of people to be outside the Elwood Police Department for his final call.
We know US 31 will definitely be impacted, and Carmel was asking the community to come out and line US 31. They are guessing around maybe 5 p.m. The procession will pass through that area, so come out, show your support, and we will have a reporter in Elwood for that final 1042 call. We will bring all of that to you throughout the day right here on WRTV. And again, we are just learning more about who Officer Noah Shahnavaz was. His family writing in the program, the bond he had with his brothers and sisters in blue was unbreakable. They say he was always excited to go to work to serve his community. They say he never missed a chance to share a story about his day with his family.
Love hearing that. You know, we learned so much more about him too during the visitation.
Yeah.
The visitation for Officer Shahnavaz was held yesterday at ITOWN Church, and we spoke with members of the community who felt moved to pay their respects and to console the family.
That includes Joseph Hawkins. His sister Teresa Hawkins was an Indianapolis police officer in 1993 when she was killed in a crash while responding to a domestic disturbance. Hawkins was the first woman officer in Indiana to be killed on the job. She was just 28 years old. Her brother shared his emotions with our Caitlin Kendall almost 30 years later.
I know my brothers and sisters are in there now, and it's all going to come right back to us just like it was yesterday. And even though it was 29 years ago with Teresa, it's just like it was yesterday again.
What are you going to tell to Noah's family if you get the opportunity today?
I'm going to tell them, you know, it's going to be a long road, but, you know, trust in God. And, you know, I know things happen for a reason, but he's so young and such a, I mean, it's hard, you know, when you know that he was going to have, you know, be married someday, maybe have 3 kids, maybe have 4 kids, who knows what. And this is not only just him going, it's his future family, you know, their future grandkids, all this stuff, they're all gone.
So sad to hear there.
And so much to think about.
Yeah. What we learned from that and from hearing the man who spoke with Caitlin is that it is really a community. And those who have lost loved ones in law enforcement before are now stepping up to wrap their arms around the family of Officer Noah Shahnavaz, and they need that support. And like you said, it will be a long road.
A long road ahead. We want to go back out live to our Caitlin Kendall as that line of officers is beginning to wrap up. Caitlin.
Mark and Nicole, I can tell you the last few officers just walked inside the church. The signal for the last officers to file in are the state troopers. They are in there, they're walking inside. I can also tell you I was told from officers inside that the capacity of the church has been met and they are now in the overflow, which is in the cafeteria. So more than 1,300 people are in attendance today. You know, the magnitude is what you guys talk about, people wrapping their arms around each other. I got a chance this morning to speak to several police officers' wives who are dedicated to showing their support through carnations. Early Saturday morning inside this building at ITOWN Church.
To support the officers.
A sea of carnations.
I'm coloring the flowers.
White to symbolize a good life and career.
Tip the middle of the flower.
With a red dot in the middle.
Which represents the bloodshed from the officer.
All these women connected by the badge.
So for me, just being here to support the officers, to support the families.
They've spent hours preparing the carnations for this moment.
So they go upside down, under their badge, over their heart.
Fellow brothers and sisters in arms from all over gathering before the funeral for fallen officer Noah Shahnavaz.
It's all about just making sure that they are truly never alone.
Each flower pinned behind the badge upside down. Every officer will have a carnation.
And then they'll place it on the casket.
To finish the ceremony, every officer will file past Officer Shahnavaz's casket for a final time, placing the carnation.
And even on their worst days, they know that they have a whole support group here behind them.
Yeah, they really talked about how even on their worst day, there are thousands of people here to support Noah Shahnavaz's family. I want to take a moment to talk about who Officer Noah Shahnavaz was. I have the program here. Noah's mom and dad actually wrote in this program. They're saying things like he was a good and honorable and kind man who was senselessly taken from the world. We should all seek to honor Noah's life and sacrifice by choosing to move forward, to do hard things, and to always strive to make the world a better place. We will love you forever, our beautiful son, and we rejoice that we will see you in heaven one day. Always and forever, Noah's loving parents, Matt and Lori. And in this program, it also talks about how proud Noah was to not only be a police officer, but to be somebody that served his community. We've been talking about it a lot, but Noah was an Army sergeant, a 5-year vet in the Army. Right after that, he went into the police academy. He's been a police officer for the Elwood Police Department for about 11 months. And in this program, his parents talk about his relationship with not only his brother and sister who he leaves behind, but also his brothers and sisters in arms. They talk about his laugh and his smile and what he brought to the world. They also share memories and bondings about what he likes to do in his spare time. They talk about how he liked gaming with his friends. He liked sitting out by the fire and just enjoying family time. I can tell you through all the pictures and memories I've heard from people who both known him and also didn't know him, just people from the community that he served, they shared his smile. I got to see that smile in pictures that were inside yesterday. And that laugh, it's an iconic laugh that everybody talks about. That laugh is something that those people will surely miss. I can tell you today, over 1,000 officers are in here to show their support, a sea of support from all over the state. We've seen officers from Terre Haute to South Bend and Anderson, Elkhart, even Franklin. So many officers out here to show their support. It stretches beyond the borders of our state as well. I've seen police officers from New York and Colorado and also Louisville, Kentucky. Everyone is just trying to show this family, Noah's family, and also the Elwood Police Department that they are not alone. I want to share with you what's going to happen after the funeral services happen. We just got briefed by police who say after the funeral and religious ceremony part is done, everyone will come out. Noah's family will be there, escorted by Elwood police officers. There's 18 pallbearers. He did tell me that is every single Elwood police officer that's on the department. It's a small department. The Lawrence police chief, who I talked to yesterday, talked about how significant a loss is on a small department. It can be felt by everyone, right? Everybody knows everybody when it comes to that small town of Elwood. But 18 pallbearers will be there. They'll be escorting the wives of other Elwood police officers and, of course, carrying Noah's casket. When they walk out, everyone out here, all officers will stand in salute at attention until Noah's body is carried out in his casket to the back here, right here, where his body will be loaded in there. They'll have a moment of silence. Everyone will stand in salute. Officers talk about how quiet it will be as his body gets loaded into that car. I can tell you, everyone will stand in salute until that door shuts and Noah's body is driven off and driven through the procession all the way back up to Elwood and back down to Crown Hill, where the final ceremony will take place. Many of the people I've talked to today say when you see a line of duty death, it's always hard, right? Every single day when they suit up and they put that uniform on, they know that it could be their last day on the job. Everyone talks about how when you say goodbye to your family, you tell them you love them because you don't know if you'll walk back through those doors. It's something that can be felt by magnitude tonight. Everyone is saying they just know what it's like to stand in arms. Of course, it's a very somber day, but one that we'll continue to follow to bring you guys the very latest. Reporting out of ITOWN Church, I'm Caitlin Kendall.
Caitlin, thank you. A somber day indeed there, and one that will be steeped in tradition. Caitlin showed us about the carnations with the red dot. There are so many other small traditions and large traditions that will take place during the day when you lose an officer in the line of duty and pay respects and lay him to rest.
And right now, as we mentioned, what's happening on screen is a live look at the funeral. You see those guards moving, and we do believe the religious portion of the funeral service will be starting soon.
Yes, and when that happens, we will be remaining silent so that you can listen in and watch the service in its entirety, and we will join you after that. We do understand a family friend, a pastor, will be leading the service today, and this family friend of the Shahnavazes came in from out of town to be here to lead this ceremony.
Reached out to the family, letting them know he would love to do this, and along with Pastor Dave Sumrall with ITOWN Church, so they will both be leading this. And as Caitlin mentioned, when this portion of the service, the memorial, is over, they will go up to Elwood PD. They're going to do that final 1042 call. We will bring that all to you live. The procession will pause in front of the Elwood Police Department. That's at 1505 South B Street for that final call. Then it will continue under the Garrison flag, which is located at South 16 and Main Street. Then it will continue to Crown Hill Cemetery, where he will be buried in the Heroes of Public Safety section.
What you've just seen on the screen is the officer in charge relieved the two guards who were standing on either side of the casket there. That is an indication that the service is about to begin momentarily. One of the things that you'll hear probably during the service, you'll hear all of the accolades about Noah Shahnavaz. You'll hear about his high school career, the contributions he made to Fishers High School there. You'll hear about his time in the U.S. Army and that he served his country for 5 years as sergeant. Let's listen in.
The memorial service for Noah Shahnavaz. Today, as we pause for a moment to celebrate the life of a fallen hero, I want to take just a moment to honor all of you who are here today in uniform for the sacrifices you continue to make in a world that seems to have lost its mind, full of hatred and violence and chaos. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. In Philippians 4, Paul tells us that we should not worry about everything, instead pray about everything. There's two things I'm confident about in this life. Number one, there is a God. And number two, we are not him. Anytime we worry, it's an indicator that we have taken the weight that God's supposed to carry and have put it upon our own shoulders. So many times we become a God to ourselves. Scripture invites us to pray about everything. And the Bible says when we do that, when we acknowledge him for who he is, that he fills us with peace that passes all understanding. My prayer for you today, as we remember a life well lived, that we would place our trust in Jesus, knowing that he's our only source of peace in this life. Would you bow with me in prayer? Lord, we thank you for the honor that we have to be in this moment. We thank you for the opportunity to live in a world with a man like Noah. We thank you for not only the life that he lived, but for the sacrifice that he made. As we honor such a fine young man, we are left with so many questions and so much pain. We thank you that you're here for us today, that your presence is here, and that we can put our trust in you. We thank you that this moment is just a brief goodbye, that we'll see him again face to face. We thank you that he is watching today, having received his reward in heaven with no more pain, no more sorrow, and no more tears. We thank you that he's with you. We pray that we would live a life that would honor the legacy that he has left behind, and that we too will see you and him together face to face. Be with us in these moments. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
On behalf of the family, I want to thank Pastor Dave and ITOWN Church for being such gracious hosts for this service to honor Noah today. I want to share with you a scripture from the book of Romans in the New Testament, chapter 12, verse 15. It says this: Rejoice with those who rejoice, and mourn with those who mourn. We're given this superpower with scripture like that, where we can have this posture where we can hold in this one hand rejoice and celebration of a life and the love that we've received from our loved ones. And yet at the same time, we hold in the other hand mourning and grief. And so today, with that posture, as the Spirit moves in this place, may He allow you to celebrate and find joy in the moments we have with one another, but yet as we are with one another, may we also grieve and mourn together. And given that posture, I would love for you to welcome Noah's mother, Noah Shahnavaz, to tell his story.
Officer Noah Shahnavaz was born on May 18, 1998 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Noah was senselessly killed in the line of duty on July 31, 2022 during a routine traffic stop. Noah served as an officer with the Elwood Police Department for only 11 months. Noah graduated from Fishers High School in 2016, and shortly thereafter, proudly joined the United States Army, serving in the 591st Military Police Company. He achieved the rank of sergeant and earned his Air Assault badge during his 5-year term in the Army, which ended in the spring of 2021. Following his discharge from the Army, Noah was honored to have joined the Elwood Police Department and served the community and his fellow officers with pride. Noah's path in life was never easy. He always worked relentlessly to overcome any challenges or barriers. Actually, a more accurate reflection would be to say that Noah destroyed any barriers that got in his way. He was singularly focused on his lifelong goal of becoming a police officer and finally achieved that dream in the summer of 2021. To say that he was a good officer is an understatement. Noah's work ethic is unmatched. He knew what it was like to struggle and to succeed, and he wove all these experiences into the beautiful man, son, brother, grandson, cousin, friend, officer, and community member that he was. Noah is beloved by so many. He leaves behind countless friends from childhood, high school, his Army days, as well as those he made in Elwood, who we now consider as brothers and sisters. Our hearts have been warmed by the stories that we have heard from those he knew well. We have also been blessed with stories of the encounters that Noah had with members of the community that we never met. Noah was an amazing man, but we didn't know until after his death just how amazing he was. He was so humble and was never one to brag about himself. Our son loved his family. He adored his sister Sarah and his brother Elijah. We treasure the memories we have of family boat trips to Lake Monroe, always followed by a stop for a root beer float. He enjoyed sitting by the fire outside, laughing with his family. He enjoyed hiking and gaming with his buddies and playing with our pets. These memories we have of Noah will always have us recalling that distinctive, iconic laugh. Noah's sense of humor was unmatched and will be missed by so many. Noah never had the chance to become a homeowner, a husband, a father, a grandfather, or an uncle. He should have had these opportunities, and this grieves us deeply. The world has lost out on who he was and what he would have become had he been given the chance. The bond that Noah had with his brothers and sisters in blue, as well as those from the army, are unbreakable. Noah proudly hung a thin blue line flag on the wall next to his bed and a United States Army flag over his window. He was always so excited to go to work and never missed a chance to share a story with his family. A good, honorable, and kind man was senselessly taken from the world. We should all seek to honor Noah's life and sacrifice by choosing to move forward, do hard things, and always strive to make the world a better place. We will love you forever, our beautiful son, and we rejoice that we will see you again in heaven one day. Always and forever, Noah's loving parents, Matt and Lori.
At this time, I'd like to welcome one of Noah's friends from his service in the military, Mark Thompson.
Hello, everyone. This is going to be pretty hard for me, sorry. My name is Mark Thompson. Deep breath. We're good. I relied on my fellow service members that have served with Noah and I to help me in this moment of sadness. This is what they had to say about Noah. Anytime he would laugh, you couldn't help but laugh with him. Let's be honest, anyone that knew him, they knew to laugh. He was always in service to his country, then in service to his community, and in service to his family at all times. He knew what it meant to be a true protector. He stuck up for the weak and always tried to do the right thing, even if he knew he was in danger. He always had to be the best, and while he tried his best, it motivated all of us to be the best. Even though he was a great cop and a human being, he did have one flaw, though. He was bad at card games, especially Uno. His family groomed him to be a perfect father. There are so many examples to choose from, but there are two that come to mind. Askelin's kids. Askelin's kid and Julio's kid. He was always gentle with them, but he always knew how to make them laugh. He always treated his friends' kids like his own. Sorry. Even when he was in the crap, he'd always lay in it until he made sure you were okay before he got out of it. Take a look around here. We have people from Fishers and the community around. We have people from Canada to California. We have people from New York to Hawaii, from Minnesota to Texas, Utah to Oklahoma, and everything in between. That's how wide his presence was. Sorry. So Noah, Nick, and I graduated air assault school, and we always made sure to let everyone know that we were the only three in the group that had that. It was our way of saying that we were the ones to beat. But now it feels like we lost our Belay man. He was my brother in arms, my battle buddy, and most of all, he was our one and only Shani Benani, our Noah the Boa, our Shahnavaz, our Noah Air Assault. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Nolan Demers to the stage.
My first interaction with Noah, or Shani, was when he first came to the 202nd Military Police Company as a newly promoted sergeant. He walked into our midnight shift brief at about 10 p.m. with that great big smile on his face. My first thought was, how is somebody so happy at this hour on a Wednesday? But as I would soon find out, that's just who Shani was, happy. He ended up being my patrol supervisor that night, and at this point in my career, I felt as if I had a pretty good grasp on how to be a cop. But man, was I wrong. Noah did not hesitate 1 second to begin training me on anything and everything, and we had just met. He was then assigned as my team leader, which looking back is the greatest thing to happen in my Army career because it's what sparked our friendship. His leadership capabilities were that of a seasoned vet, and he kept you coming to work every single day motivated, regardless of what task was at hand. We very quickly began taking our relationship outside of work, spending almost every weekend together, whether it was playing video games or out at Twin Peaks, which, if you ask Shani, is the finest establishment ever created. He would even take his dates there, but that's all I'll mention on his love life. I'm sure a few of us know the Pendleton parking lot situation. Shani and I have a lot in common. We both love hiking, video games, and being on the lake with our family. I think that's why we clicked. My girlfriend often called us two peas in a pod. Noah was able to connect people from all walks of life. If it wasn't for him, I would never have met my great friends Chris or Mark, or the numerous friends he has through gaming. People, some from different countries who have never met Shani in person, only over the internet, are here today to show their support for him. He truly touched people from all over the globe. Shani loved working in Elwood. Every day he would get off work and have some funny or crazy story to share with us. Whether it was the drugs he took off the street or a report that he took for a stolen license plate, he would talk about his job as if there was nothing greater in the world. He truly loved being a police officer. But most importantly, he loved the guys he worked with. The way he talked about his brothers and sisters at the PD made it seem like he had been there for years, not just 11 months. Every time Elwood was hiring, Shan would send me the employment form and say, "Here you go," with a silly grin on his face. To the guys from Elwood, thank you for welcoming him into your brotherhood with open arms. And thank you for helping him celebrate his 16th birthday this past May. The memories I have with Shani, I'll forever hold dear to my heart. I could stand up here for quite a long time and speak about how wonderful of a son, brother, friend, and cop Shani is. So, to the 4 a.m. video games, the one too many glasses of Blue Moon that we drank, and the many, many memories we made. Thank you, Shani, for being my leader, my hero, and most importantly, my best friend. It's not goodbye, it's I'll see you later.
At At this time, I'd like to invite Nick Tracy to share.
Hi, my name is Nick Tracy. I had the pleasure of meeting Noah in the Army, a life so full that no one could sum it up in one speech. Noah, our Shanny Banani, I, like many other of the soldiers who were in our first unit and just showed up, felt very lost and alone. And then I soon met Shahnavaz, and he was able to take me under his wing into his group, and I finally felt like I had a home. I didn't realize that when I met Noah, that he was going to be one of my best friends, but I knew quick how special he was. He always had this natural ability to ease everybody around him. As he came up in the Army, his abilities and skill became apparent. I never met somebody who made the ones close to him feel more confident in pursuing who they desired to be. He spent hours talking to us about what we truly wanted to be. Noah was a natural leader, a leader that all of us knew but have trouble describing. Can you ever really put into words a good leader? But our favorite part of Noah is his unbelievably great belly laugh that would catch anybody's attention. I know everybody's mentioned it, but that's because of how important it is. I asked our company about something that we should never forget about Noah. Each one mentioned his laugh. We also have so many memories that we made with Noah that will stay with us for a life. I am privileged to have the opportunity to present this speech, but I felt that it was important to talk about what the company had to say about him. Noah was a genuine, loyal, and compassionate man. Anyone I asked would bring up these characteristics independently of each other. It was hard for me to sum him up in only simple phrases or a single speech, and I wanted to do him the justice that he deserves, but I think that can only truly be done if you had met him. I'm so happy to see the impact that he had and the people that he knew, and sad that he can now only be remembered and not experienced firsthand. I miss our hiking trips in the mountains of El Paso. I miss our long nights of gaming. I'm sorry I never got to take you to the cabin in Minnesota. You're our brother, Noah. And no amount of time would have been enough. I miss you. Aerosol.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. A man in blue has lost his life in service of the Lord. man in blue died for me and you. We must remember him too. Flags fly low, let us bow in prayer for fallen policemen everywhere, and remember this, that they are missed. The badge burns bright like an evening star, free from a world of war. A sorrow that bereaves us now, a sorrow of the world. Our Lord will greater kindness show, above makes spirits whole.
At this time, I would like to invite Noah's police chief, the chief of the Elwood Police Department, Chief Jason Brizendine.
Thank you all for being here with us today. For those of you who do not know, I am Jason Brizendine, the Elwood Police Chief. I didn't want to do any of this. Those of you who have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those who don't, I pray you never do. I can tell you how thankful we are to Noah, and especially his family, for sharing him with us, for sharing your grandson, your son, nephew, cousin, and brother with the Elwood Police Department, the city of Elwood, and millions of officers, deputies, and every blend of first responders. Noah was and will always be our brother. As the chief, I have, whether wanted or not, different perspectives. This also applies to Noah. He was more than a police officer, more than an Elwood police officer. Just one example was just this week, Lieutenant Steve Guthrie shared a mission statement Noah wrote while at the academy. In the statement were the profound words well beyond what we'd think a new officer would understand. The very first line was, "Respect the badge and the Elwood Police Department." Integrity and honesty was with him his whole young life, proudly serving our country in the United States Army for 5 years. After the first phase of the hiring process at the Elwood Police Department, Assistant Chief Kyle Comer came directly to me and said, "You're going to love this guy." They obviously, my guys know how picky I am when we hire. So anyways, later on in the process for the hiring, Kyle, the assistant chief, and I conducted an in-home interview with Noah and his family. Noah answered the door wearing a pressed suit and tie and had the largest never-ending grin on his face. While speaking with his parents and little brother during the interview, it was immediately apparent how close, caring, and kind his family was. Mom, Dad, and Elijah could not have been more proud of Noah. Within minutes of completing the interview, as assistant chief and I was heading back to Elwood, it only took a few minutes to decide to call Noah and offer him the job immediately. He was hired on August 21st, 2021, as an Elwood police team and family member. Even with Noah gone, our families, friends, and communities still need protected. Noah entered law enforcement at the peak of social criticism, never strayed from his goal despite it. Despite the violence and atrocities, service beyond one's own self is still a calling among this generation. They are expected to do the job delicately in one of the most vicious times in our history. This generation of police are expected to execute their duties by a constantly changing set of rules, despite the prevalence of evil, scrutinized for every decision, every action. A job which seemingly has no gain or little upside for qualified candidates, positions are still being filled by brave men and women like Noah. Noah loved his job and quickly excelled at it. He was a little brother to the family at the Elwood Police Department. Okay, I'm unsure who this author was, but this quote resonated with me this week. A true police officer fights, not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves who stands behind him. To the Shahnavaz family, Elwood 39, brother to us all, will forever be in our hearts. Matt, Lori, Elijah, Sarah. Noah's legacy will be carried out through you as part of our police department family.
This time I'd like to invite Noah's grandmother, Barbara Batson, but officially known as Grand Barb. Don't call her anything else.
Noah is my firstborn grandson. Noah's father, Matthew, is my firstborn son. And I am Grand Barb. No words can express my gratitude for the outpouring of support during this unimaginable sorrow for our family. The law enforcement community has been with us every moment. Your continuing prayers and presence with us, especially today, both in person and from your homes, is what helps us go on when we'd rather time stood still or back up to where we were before this happened. We've experienced a whirlwind of activities with broken hearts and tears falling like rain. And there have also been times where memories brought smiles and laughter to pierce the sorrow. We've encountered thoughtful revelations of just exactly how wonderful a man our Noah is. Amazingly, harbingers of his greatness were predicted at his birth as his Aunt Ginger in the form of a blessing. N is for noble, character strong. O is for open, helping others belong. A is for admired, respected, and true. H is for happiness, our wish for you. There is comfort in the knowledge that without a doubt, Noah was truly happy. He was happy, oh, so happy, to graduate Fishers High School after marching with the Tigers and, of course, his beloved winter percussion. Happy serving his country for 5 years as an Army MP. And most happy achieving his goal to be a law enforcement officer with Elwood PD. Since Sunday, every personal encounter, phone call, text, or email message ended with the offer of help, asking me to let them know if we need anything. Anything. Until yesterday, I was bereft of an answer, but I found it. I found an answer to the question in this book that I hold close. If you have yours with you, you can turn with me to chapter 4 of Philippians, verse 8. Finally, brethren and sisters, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. To those of you who've asked what you can do, I'll tell you, I have one more thing to ask of you. Remember Noah. Remember Noah. Can you say that with me, please? Remember Noah. Thank you.
This time I'd like to invite Noah's younger sister and younger brother, Sarah and Elijah Shahnavaz.
Oh, Elijah, can you grab Noah's jug? Can you grab it? His jug. We're going to talk about the jug because everyone needs to know about it. It was one of Noah's simple joys in life. This is something I got from cheer like maybe 5 years ago, filled with candy. It was like a little end of season gift, and Noah has since claimed it for himself. And every single night he would have this. It's just a jug full of water with no ice. The most Noah thing I could ever think of. And on Sunday when I came home, it was in his room empty, so we thought it would be fitting to bring it here and fill it up with water for him. As Larry said, I'm Noah's younger sister, Sarah, and this is our little brother, Elijah. And
As we all struggle to come to terms with this huge loss, I just keep on praying that Noah's beautiful life and legacy are never forgotten. I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned from him so that we can honor Noah to the fullest. Service before self. Noah saw the importance of his job in the Army and as a police officer. He was reliable and he dedicated so much of his life to these roles. Be brave even when giving up would be easier. There were a few times throughout his journey in public service where I could see the worry on his face. He continued to show up because that's his calling. Laughter is therapeutic. Noah was always the funny one out of our family. Everyone always laughed at his jokes, and I was extremely jealous of that. So every single time I'd make him laugh, I was really proud of myself. And some things that I have learned after going through this week of extreme grief with my family that I wanted to share with everyone. Life is too short. Perhaps humans' biggest mistake is believing that everyone will live to the average life expectancy. Life is too short to let misunderstandings remain misunderstood. And life is too short not to tell people you love them every chance you get. I just hope, even if you are here and you didn't know my big brother Noah personally, that you can say that you learned something too from his beautiful life before he gave it up far too soon. I love my brother, and saying goodbye to him will not be easy. As a community, I need for us to come together and act with compassion and care towards others, and we need to be there for each other. We need to never forget my brother, Noah.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't.
I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I build my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm which I stand, when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail.
Rain came and went, ooh, but my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm going to make it through. Rain came and went, ooh, but my house was built on
Safe with you, I'm going to make it. Rain came and went, blue, and my house is built on you. I'm safe with you, I'm gonna make it through. I'm gonna make it through, 'cause I'm standing strong on you. I'm gonna make it through, 'cause my house is built on you. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand, when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't.
Noah Jacob Shahnavaz, or as his brothers and sisters in arms referred to him as Shanny. Noah was a light. His presence changed a room, a true servant leader. His entire life marked by this, and a clear calling early as a young man to serve the community. Who would choose this? Like, what was he thinking? Why would you want to be a police officer? Someone who is rarely celebrated, officers know this, who is experiencing people who is never excited to celebrate you or give you good news or thank you for caring for them in the community that they have committed to serve in. Very few know this. Noah knew this. Noah knew this calling on his life would be a life of caring for people in distress and crisis. And yet, that is all he wanted to do, to be a servant. And as some of you may have figured that out by now, Noah took his lead from Jesus. I'd like to read to you from the book of John, found in the New Testament, chapter 14, verses 1 through 7. This is Jesus speaking. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and I prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am. You know the way to the place that I am going. One of Jesus' disciples, Thomas, said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And if you really know me, you will know my Father as well. So from now on, you do know him, and you have seen him. That, friends, is a message of hope. And some of you may be lacking hope in this moment. So on behalf of Noah, let me encourage you with this thought. God does not take lightly either our sin or our death. As followers of Jesus, and as a follower of Jesus, Noah was awed by the implications of 2 Corinthians 5:21. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. See, Jesus died to put away our sin from us. We are precious to him. And he was raised to show that God does not take our death lightly either. Psalms 116:15 says, his loved ones are very precious to him, and he does not lightly let them die. The awareness of our finiteness, of the brevity and frailty of our lives haunts us. Every generation since Adam has been anxious. We are, through fear of death, subject to lifelong bondage. Life is tenuous. It's unpredictable, fragile. It often takes turns that find us unprepared. To unbelievers, there seems this randomness about life wherein there is fortune or misfortune depending on nothing more than a flip of the coin or the roll of dice. There are those who have good runs of chance, but at some point, one's luck must run out. Even believers, those whose faith is strong, look askant at the events of life. They're aware of God's presence and power. They know his creative activity, but for them, the crucial question is, does God care about what happens to us? Does he forget our personal needs, our fears, our wants, our need for his presence? The difficulty that we have in understanding God's ways can be stated no more forthrightly than from a young teenager I once spoke with who reasoned, I don't think God is fair. He lets us die, but he didn't die himself. It's because this young man's two main premises were misguided that he came to the wrong conclusion about God's fairness. God does not desire our death. Neither does he sit by idly while we die. Noah knew well the truth of that. A verse Noah would share with all of us comes from Joshua 1:9. It says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Perhaps the most remarkable yet overlooked feature of Jesus' vocabulary was the casual way in which he described death, his as well as others. When he told the 12 disciples of Lazarus' death, He spoke in such casual terms that they misunderstood him entirely. Understandably so. He said, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going to go there and wake him up." Now, why wake a napping friend, especially one who is recovering from an illness? They probably all wondered. Well, Jesus was referring to Lazarus' death, but his words left them with the impression that Lazarus was literally asleep. The same happened with a little girl who had died, and upon hearing this, he told a crowd, "She's not dead, she has just fallen asleep." Later, when preparing his disciples for his own imminent death, he spoke so casually of it as they thought he was literally leaving the city, just leaving the city for a moment. In that same conversation, he said, "My Father's house, it has many rooms. I'm going to go there and prepare a place for you. And when I prepare a place for you, I'll come back and take you with me." No wonder they were confused. Jesus had literally reduced death to the complexity of running next door for a cup of sugar. His followers did the same. Paul, writing to believers in Thessalonica, responding to questions about loved ones who were no longer with us, saying, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brethren, about those who are asleep, so that you will not grieve as do the rest who have no hope." Then, referencing those who had seen Jesus after his resurrection, Paul wrote, "Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom were still alive, though some had fallen asleep." Why refer to death as sleep? It's because people who fall asleep wake up. On July 31st, 2022, Noah went to sleep. That's what Jesus taught. Paul affirmed. But we don't just take comfort in this depiction merely because Jesus said it and Paul affirmed it. We believe it because hours after Jesus predicted his own departure, he was arrested, crucified, and buried. And then, as he promised, he woke up. His followers, they took to the streets with the message that the death had met its match. The rabbi from Nazareth was now the resurrection and life all rolled into one. Then Paul, taking his cue from Jesus, left us with one more insight. To be absent from the body is to be home with the Lord. Noah Shahnavaz woke up in his new home with the Lord. But he will be missed more than words can express. May we live like Shani. Will you please join me in watching Noah's life and pictures?
officer. Every attribute that he has, every characteristic.
And I remember just constantly, I think he was holding me together more than I was holding him.
And we would just sit there and talk for hours about like what we want to do and all that in 120-degree weather.
And I used to say, man, I don't know how you do this. And he was like, I love it.
We can't leave here without an opportunity for you to understand you can have a life like Shani. If you have questions about faith, need counseling, experienced loss or hardship, this local church is here for you. In fact, so here for you that they're ready right now. There are pastoral staff all over the lobby with ITOWN name tags on, and they are ready and willing to have a conversation about what a life like Shani is all about. The best way to honor Noah is to step into that. And first and foremost, that means experiencing a transformational relationship with Jesus. I want to leave you with this last thought. It simply boils down to this, that there is nothing so lost in you that cannot be found. If you're here today and you feel lost and you are willing, you will be found by God. There is nothing so broken that cannot be mended on this side of eternity. If you find yourself in a place where you are broken and hurting, you can be mended. And there's nothing so dead in you, in your life, that cannot be resurrected again. Because that's what God does. He resurrects things. And he will resurrect things in your life. I'm going to ask you to have this posture of your hands held out, a posture of giving up and receiving. I'd like to give you this blessing. You are loved more than you know. May God meet you today, and I pray that you go in peace. At this time, we'd like to dismiss our law enforcement and public safety family. Thank you.
Right now you're watching law enforcement officers file out of the ITOWN Church in Fishers, where the funeral service for Officer Noah Shahnavaz has just wrapped up. Honors will take place outside the church as they take Officer Shahnavaz from the church to the funeral coach. So as these law enforcement officers leave, everyone will clear out except for the family, the pastor, 8 pallbearers, and the casket there.
Then outside, all of the officers who are filing out right now will line up and prepare to receive the casket. Officers will line up and salute as the casket is then carried to the coach, and as the casket gets to the door, they will present arms and receive it, standing in salute as the casket is taken to the coach. Then once that happens, everyone will get in their vehicles and the procession will begin. 1,300 people attended this service here in Fishers.
And as our Caitlin Kendall told us, that it was standing room only. They had to use the overflow standing area. We watched this emotional ceremony and heard from so many people who had so much love and appreciation for Noah Shahnavaz, and we learned a lot from the speakers that we saw today. And I'll tell you what, Nicole, what I learned. This is such a strong, tight-knit family, demonstrating such strength and poise in eloquence in this dark hour. It was amazing to hear them speak.
We heard from his mom, we heard from his grandmother, we heard from his sister who stood up there. They shared their memories. They remembered him in his career in law enforcement, in the Army. They said he knew what it was like to struggle. He knew what it was like to succeed. He loved serving his community. He loved serving our country.
And we learned his nickname, Shanny Banani.
Shanny Banani. And so many of the speakers talked about his laugh.
Right, including his mom.
That is something we heard over and over. He just had an amazing personality. He was humble. He never bragged. He adored his family. He loved going to Lake Monroe with his family, out on the boat, sitting by the campfire. An Indiana boy.
His mom, Lori Shahnavaz, delivered the eulogy and really demonstrated strength, not showing tears till the very end, holding them back, but still held it together. And then we saw that emotion take over. She really described that her son was such a strong person too, that he knew what it was like to go through struggle and success.
He was always so excited to go to work and never missed a chance to share a story with his family. A good, honorable, and kind man was senselessly taken from the world. We should all seek to honor Noah's life and sacrifice by choosing to move forward, do hard things, and always strive to make the world a better place. We will love you forever, our beautiful son, and we rejoice that we will see you again in heaven one day. Always and forever, Noah's loving parents, Matt and Lori.
She also talked about how the world has lost out on who he was and who he would have had the chance to become if he would just been on earth a little longer. He was only 24 years old. She talked about how he strived to make the world a better place, and that is what she wants all of us to do. That is what she wants the community to do. Strive to make the world a better place for all of us. She said he's an honorable and a kind man, and they will miss him so much.
And she said he was senselessly killed, and that he destroyed barriers that got in his way. It was amazing just to hear his mom speak. As we watch from inside at the ITOWN Church, law enforcement officers leave the church. They are gathering outside the church, getting ready for the casket to be brought out. Our Caitlin Kendall has been watching this service. It is now outside ITOWN Church with those law enforcement officers who are lining up. Caitlin.
Mark and Nicole, I can tell you almost fittingly enough, it started to rain, almost as if the sky is shedding tears for Officer Noah Shahnavaz. Everyone out here paying their respects, lining up, they're making their way outside of that funeral home. You can see officers from all over the state, even all over the country, lining up as they prepare for Officer Noah Shahnavaz's body to be carried out in his casket. 18 pallbearers will carry out the casket for Officer Shahnavaz. I can tell you all of the pallbearers are every single member of the Elwood Police Department. a very small department. I've spoken to people who talk about the magnitude that this department is feeling, especially with it being so small. People are lining up to pay their respects. You can see the honor guard standing guard with their flags, a thin blue line flag, also a flag to honor Noah's time in the Army. Everyone will file out here. They will line up as soon as Officer Shahnavaz, his casket makes it to the doorway. They will all stand and salute. I can tell you from experience, the silence that you will hear, it's almost deafening. You can hear a pin drop, everyone watching as Noah's casket is carried out and loaded into the car to be taken on his procession up to Elwood and back down to Crown Hill. Thousands of officers here today, I can tell you, hundreds rather. You talked about it earlier. ITOWN holds 1,300 people. It was standing room only. They had to go into overflow. So many officers, brothers and sisters in arms, coming out to pay their respects to a man that many friends called him Shanny Banani, and they talked about that smile that I've heard from so many people. It made everyone kind of chuckle in the audience, but I can tell you there's sorrow. You can feel how heartbreaking it is inside that room in the funeral service. People grabbing tissues, something compelling about seeing officers with tears swallowing up in their eyes. He truly was a great friend and an awesome son. His mom took to the stand in a eulogy, talking about who her son was and who the man he will never get to be. She talked about him not being able to be a father or a homeowner or even a grandfather or an uncle. His siblings, his younger siblings, went up to the podium and they shared a little bit about Noah. And it was just compelling to see everyone in that room coming together, wrapping their arms around not only Noah's family, but also the Elwood Police Department. The Elwood Police Department is in the front of the row, all there, obviously remembering a friend whose life was cut far too soon. As officers are continuing to file out of ITOWN Church, they're lining up in preparation to see Noah's casket be loaded in. I can tell you, it's sorrowful. There's tears shed by both men, women, people in arms. It's something that you will never forget. When you're out here, you can just feel the emotion. It's quiet, somber, but everyone, through all the somber, through all the heartache and all the tears, there's this sense of unity, this sense of everyone coming together to support one another, and this sense of togetherness. You know, they talked about what it means to be a police officer and what it means to lay your life on the line. And I can tell you that every single person in there today not only feel privileged to be a police officer, an honor to be a police officer, but they also feel honored to remember a brother in arms whose life was cut far too soon. Now, there will be plenty of things to still happen out here today. They will, of course, honor Noah as he gets sent off in his procession. They'll go up to Elwood for his end of watch. There, they will make their way back to Crown Hill, where the memorial services will continue. We will stay out here and monitor the situation to let you guys know what's happening out here as those hundreds of officers make their way outside of ITOWN Church. Reporting live from Fishers, I'm Caitlin Kendall.
Caitlin, thank you. And as you mentioned, these were his brothers in arms and in law enforcement. We had the opportunity to hear from the chief of the Elwood Police Department there, Chief Jason Brizadine, and he said that this was something he never wanted to do.
Right.
Meaning he did not want to stand on a podium in front of so many people to talk about losing an officer. And he said that he understood what the other chiefs who have had to do this over the last 10 years have had to do, and that he hoped that no other chief would have to do this again.
And he also shared a little bit about when he hired Officer Shahnavaz. And it was just minutes after he left his home, interviewing him and his family, that they called him and said, yes, please come be with our team.
And usually this takes a week or so to get the call back.
And we want to listen in on some of what he had to say.
Even with Noah gone, our families, friends, and communities still need protected. Noah entered law enforcement at the peak of social criticism, never strayed from his goal despite it. A true police officer fights, not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves who stands behind him.
What a great quote there.
The chief also described him as a little brother to the family at the Elwood Police Department.
He really lightened the mood.
And he was only there 11 months.
11 months there. The chief said that Noah loved his job and quickly excelled at it.
And he always wanted to be an officer. In high school, he was taking classes at the J. Everett Law Enforcement Program, special classes with curriculum surrounding a future in law enforcement. And when he graduated, he went to the U.S. Army. And we heard from some of his Army friends that was extremely emotional during the service today. They described him as a leader, a hero, a best friend. They said it's not goodbye, it's see you later. They said his leadership capabilities were just unmatched. He loved his fellow officers and he considered them family. And just in that short time of being a part of the Elwood Police Department, he felt like he was a part of that family. They described he would talk about it like he'd been there for so many years.
Right, and everyone described that belly laugh that
Yes.
he had. And every single person who took the podium mentioned that, which shows that that was such a key part of his character and his personality. We also got an indication, we showed you the law enforcement officers that packed into the ITOWN Church, but we also got an indication from his Army friends about how many people have come from far and wide to be a part of this service, to show and pay their respects to Noah Shahnavaz. One of his friends said that there were people there from Canada to Hawaii. That's how far his presence reached.
We want to listen into one of his Army friends, Nick Tracy. This gentleman talked about how Noah helped him feel confident, how he was a natural leader, he was genuine, he was loyal, and he was compassionate.
He always had this natural ability to ease everybody around him. As he came up in the Army, his abilities and skill became apparent. I never met somebody who made the ones close to him feel more confident in pursuing who they desired to be. I miss our hiking trips in the mountains of El Paso. I miss our long nights of gaming. I'm sorry I never got to take you to the cabin in Minnesota. You're our brother, Noah. And no amount of time would have been enough. I miss you. Aerosol.
A young life cut too short, just 24 years old, killed in the line of duty, Officer Noah Shahnavaz. Right now you're looking at a live picture right outside of ITOWN Church in Fishers. This is off of 136th Street. All the officers in attendance, the family members, the community members right now are waiting for the casket to be brought out. At the conclusion of the service, everyone left out except for the pastor, 8 pallbearers, and the casket, and the family. Outside, you're seeing them line up right now, preparing to receive that casket as it is brought to the coach.
And the weather is playing a role here at this
is.
hour. As you can see, the rain has picked up. More people have reached for their umbrellas, but it has not deterred anyone from leaving. There's going to be that salute once the casket is brought out. So many people arriving to pay the respects, and we are zooming in. You can see there the casket, the hearse door has been opened there in the rear of the vehicle as we await for the casket with Noah Shahnavaz's body to leave the church.
We had a chance to learn so much more about him during this service and just see how he impacted the community in his short period of time there. We heard many things just about how he helped his fellow officers in the Army, how he strived to make the world a better place. The chief talked about how when he was in the law enforcement academy, how he talked about being more than a police officer. His mission statement that he wrote was "Respect the badge in Elwood PD."
And that stood out to him.
Because he's
stood
such
out
a
to the
young
chief.
officer.
Right.
And as I mentioned, he called him just minutes later to offer him that job. And so he became a part of that family so quickly. And I remember seeing a post on Facebook after he graduated from the Law Enforcement Academy saying, "We're excited to have him back patrolling our streets."
Right. And he really,
in the community.
He really put his heart into it. In fact, we heard from the family that being a law enforcement officer was his goal.
It was his goal.
At his young age, 24, he was able to achieve his lifelong dream. We heard one of the speakers who really stood out to me was his grandmother, Grandma Barb. They call her Grand Barb. Her name is Barbara Batson. And she went through and broke down his name.
Yes.
Noah, letter by letter. N is for
Noble.
noble.
The O stands for open, the A, admired.
And the H for happiness.
And she said that's her wish for all of us.
Yeah, and she said that Noah was truly happy when he departed this world, that he had achieved a lot of the goals he had set out for himself, that he had surrounded himself with loved ones, that is what made him happy.
She said it was her first grandson.
Yeah.
And her son's is her first son.
Yeah. Let's listen into Grand Barb.
Noah was truly happy. He was happy, oh, so happy, to graduate Fishers High School after marching with the Tigers and, of course, his beloved winter percussion. happy serving his country for 5 years as an Army MP, and most happy achieving his goal to be a law enforcement officer with Elwood PD. To those of you who've asked what you can do, I'll tell you, I have one more thing to ask of you. Remember Noah.
I believe for a lot of people that will be easy to do. He seems someone that is unforgettable, someone who has touched so many lives. And the eloquence of Grand Barb's speech really stood out.
Really well written. Yeah. And when he was in the Army, he did very well. He was deployed in the Middle East from June of 2017 to February of 2018. He served at 2 border missions, but he also received his Air Assault Badge, and you heard many of the speakers talk about that and just how he was such a leader in the Army, and he served our country for 5 years, and when he was discharged, that's when he became on his journey to become an Elwood police officer, and he was able to do that August of 2021. You see everyone in attendance right now outside of ITOWN Church just waiting for what's next.
We heard from Mark Thompson, who was one of his Army friends, who said that Noah Shahnavaz was always in service. That means that he was constantly stepping up to serve his fellow man, his community. He said, and then this really stood out as well. He said that Noah always strived to do the right thing, even if he knew he was in danger, to his last moments.
He called him a protector. He said, on the light side of things, he said anytime he would laugh, you knew to laugh with him. Again, that laugh is something we heard over and over again because he just loved to have fun. They talked a lot about their memories as a family, memories that are cut far too soon. We heard from his sister who took to the stand.
That's right.
We want to listen in to what she had to say.
This is something I got from Cheer like maybe 5 years ago, filled with candy. It was like a little end of season gift, and Noah has since claimed it for himself, and every single night he would have this. It's just a jug full of water with no ice. The most Noah thing I could ever think of. And on Sunday when I came home, it was in his room empty, so we thought it would be fitting to bring it here and fill it up with water for him. Life is too short. Perhaps humans' biggest mistake is believing that everyone will live to the average life expectancy. Life is too short to let misunderstandings remain misunderstood. And life is too short not to tell people you love them every chance you get.
A great message that we can all take away there from Noah Shahnavaz's little sister, her little brother standing right by her side. She said, be there for each other, show compassion. And I know that moment just really stood out for me when she went in his room and she saw that empty jug of water on Sunday after he had been killed Sunday morning.
And as we watch Noah's little brother Elijah put the jug of water back in front of the casket, a moment there that you had to catch. Elijah put his hand on the casket. Such a touching moment, very brief, but one of love and being with his brother.
And right now you're looking live right here on your screen outside of ITOWN Church. This is in Fishers, Indiana, 136th Street. They are waiting for the casket of Officer Noah Shahnavaz to be brought out. And once that happens, they will have a procession. The procession will go all the way up to Elwood, which is about 50 minutes northeast of Indianapolis, about 30 minutes from Noblesville off of State Roads 37 and 28. Population about 8,600 people. We know hundreds of people are going to be lining the streets in Elwood. They have been paying their respects for Officer Shahnavaz throughout this entire week. The entire community has just been showing their support and love for him.
It is the next leg of today's service, the procession that goes to Elwood. So many people are already there waiting, and especially outside of the Elwood Police Department, where we will hear the end of call announcement called the 1042. Our Adam Shooms is in Elwood at this hour, and Adam, from your vantage point, plenty of flags and plenty of people who are waiting for this fallen officer.
Yeah, Mark, Nicole, good afternoon. The showing of support for Officer Shahnavaz is absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to step out of the camera and just show you the line of people here in Elwood that have come out to honor his legacy, his life, a life that was taken far too soon. This community coming out one by one, just here to gather and pay their respects in honor of a man who paid his ultimate sacrifice, who spent nearly just about a year serving this town. I'm going to be joined by Mr. Bob Patterson with the Indiana Patriot Guards. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why do you feel like it was so important to drive all the way down from Muncie to be here today?
It's an honor to be here. It's what we do, Patriot Guard. When we're asked to come to something like this, we come. We don't ask questions. It's in every one of our hearts to be here. And our hearts hurt. I've never met this guy. I've never met 99% of the people that we stand for. A lot of us are not service members. Many of us are. It's to see this support is absolutely worth everything we do to come up here.
And you did something very special for this community yesterday. What was that?
The Indiana Patriot Guard showed up at 8 o'clock yesterday morning, put out close to 500 flags here and close to 100 at the church in Fishers. And you'll see, if you haven't already, anywhere this route's going, Elwood, and even not just Elwood, people from all around are going to be here. You'll see police cars from different states, fire trucks from different states. It's a huge thing to everybody.
To see the show of support, this community has gone out to show Officer Shahnavaz, whether they knew him or not, to pay his respects. What does that mean?
It's the world. It's in their heart to be here. Just because that's what they feel about their community, and that's what we feel about the state of Indiana. And I've done escorts in other states, and it's the same. It's an honor.
Mr. Patterson, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. And Mark, Nicole, we're going to send it back to you, but we'll be out in Elwood throughout the rest of the afternoon.
Adam, thank you. We'll be checking in with you as the procession makes its way there. We want to direct your attention back to ITOWN Church in Fishers, where we understand the family and the pallbearers will be bringing the casket out.
Our Caitlin Kendall is standing by live now. Caitlin.
Mark and Nicole, I can tell you it is quiet. You can hear a pin drop in the room, deafening silence. I'm understanding that the family and all those pallbearers will be coming out to escort Noah in his casket to the coach, which is open. Its doors are open. If you take a look all the way, you can see uniforms and uniforms and uniforms from all across the state. Not just the state here. We're talking about police officers from out of state. We've heard Colorado, New York, Hawaii. As far as the eye can see, you can see police officers. What they're planning to do here, they will stand and salute as soon as Officer Shahnavaz's casket makes it to the doorway. Once that happens, they will remain in salute until Officer Shahnavaz's casket is brought out to the coach. They will load the casket into the coach and shut those doors. Then everyone will make their ways to their car. That is where the procession will start. I can tell you the emotion that I'm seeing right now, fellow brothers and sisters in arms with their heads bowed. Everyone trying to understand this moment, trying to take it all in. It's an emotional one. I can tell you it's somber. And again, like I've mentioned, it is very, very quiet. Everyone out here paying respects to Officer Noah Shahnavaz. I want to talk about the funeral briefly, and I know we've been mentioning it here and there, but I want to share a moment that stuck out to me. It was Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace is sung at every single line of duty death. This line of duty death, the Amazing Grace had the police officer's prayer. In it, you heard things about a police officer's life being taken far too soon, and you just hear about the magnitude that this job has. Of course, this is just the beginning of the memorial services to Officer Noah Shahnavaz. Over hundreds and hundreds of officers out here. I want to tell you again that ITOWN Church said that they can fit up to 1,300 people inside their building. They reached capacity today. They had to go into overflow in the cafeteria. So many people coming out to show their support. Again, right now, the family is inside paying their final respects to Officer Shahnavaz. They will then come out being escorted by all the pallbearers. I want to note here, the pallbearers for Noah's casket, there's 18 of them. And when I was talking to someone from the memorial staff, they talked about how they've never done this before with this many pallbearers. But it was important to them because Elwood PD is a very small department. Only 18 officers remain. Noah would have made the 19th officer. But every single officer is playing a role in here today. You can hear the drums starting. The drums are what's going to come right as Noah is about to be brought out with his family. And I can tell you, all the pallbearers, whether they're holding the casket or not, they're standing with wives, mothers, family members of Noah. The jump procession is starting. I'm going to take a moment to be quiet because here comes Officer Shahnavaz as he's making his way to the coach. Happening right now for those of you just joining us. The JUM procession is escorting Noah Shahnavaz with his casket to the coach. Following that is all of the Elwood police officers and their wives. All of the Elwood police officers are pallbearers today. His family will be escorted out by them as well. Noah's friends, family, close brothers and sisters in arms are standing there. What they will do, they will load Noah's body in the casket into the back of the coach. Everyone is standing in salute right now. They'll be in salute until the coach doors shut. There'll be a moment of silence. Take a notice at the flags that are at the back of the coach. It is the full honor guard, but in them there's a flag representing Noah's time in service, his 5 years as an Army veteran. There's also a thin blue line flag. Officers were just dismissed. Of course, that means that Officer Shahnavaz's casket was loaded into the back of the coach. Here is where all of the officers are going to make their way to their cars and prepare for that procession. We've talked about the magnitude of that procession. It's going to start here, make its way up to Elwood before coming down to Crown Hill. Of course, there'll be periodical stops. And in Elwood, they'll do his end of watch call. Everyone, of course, dismissing here. It's just a show of support. You know, we talk about these officers out here. We talk about how they're not just police officers. They're family members, their loved ones, uncles, grandpas, sons, daughters, you name it. But that's the magnitude of the emotion out here, is that Officer Shahnavaz was not just a man in blue. He was also obviously an Army veteran, but he was a great friend. We heard many people talk about Officer Shahnavaz's time in the military, his laugh. Everyone talked about Noah's laugh. It was a lighthearted moment of the ceremony. You know, there's so much somber and quietness when it comes to these funerals, but a moment of giggle from the audience when they talk about who Noah was as a person, the smile that lit up the room. Again, everyone's making their ways to their cars so that that procession can start. The procession will be led with, of course, dozens and dozens of police cars with their lights on, taking his body all the way up to Elwood before bringing it back to Crown Hill. I do want to say that it just through all of this, I can tell you, it's this feeling of everyone coming together. Of course, we will be continuing to watch that procession as it makes its way up to Elwood and then back to Crown Hill, and we, of course, will bring you those services out at Crown Hill. Reporting for you live out of ITOWN, I'm Caitlin Kendall.
And of course, Caitlin, we appreciate your compassion and your reporting today. We'll be checking in with you in just a bit. As Caitlin mentioned, this procession will leave the ITOWN Church and will head north to the city of Elwood, and it will the casket and the coach will go by the Elwood Police Department, where they will do the end of service call for Officer Noah Shahnavaz, essentially letting him know in a literal, not figurative way that his service in the police department is at ease. and we'll be carrying that for you live when we return with you.
And then they'll let them know that they'll take it from here. His brothers in blue, his Elwood family. You're seeing a live look right now in Elwood where the community is gathering. You see the flags there that our Adam Shum showed us lining the street in Elwood. We know that the procession will pause in front of the Elwood Police Department. That's at 5505 South B Street for that final 1042 call. The procession will then continue under a garrison flag, which will be located at South 16th and Main Street. I've heard from people lining up already in Lapel. We know the procession will eventually go through Carmel at some point. It'll make its way down to Indianapolis, Crown Hill Cemetery. So you are being asked today, if you have time, to come out and show your respect for this family, for this officer who laid it all on the line for his community. You're also seeing a live look right now at ITOWN Church. This is off of 136th Street in Fishers, where those officers are beginning to make their ways to their cars to file out for this procession. And we will bring you the sights and sounds throughout the day here on WRTV.
And we'll also have that for you on our website at WRTV.com. We do say that if you are traveling in this area, to exercise patience as this procession will take some time, or avoid the areas, and we do have a map for you of the procession route at our website as well. We'll return with you when the procession reaches the city of Elwood and bring you live coverage there.
Thank you so much for joining us.